I am transgender. Growing up, it was scary. I didn't have anyone to talk to. My family didn't understand. It's a struggle to be real. Society, for some reason, doesn't want people to be real. I've come across a lot of transgender children in the world, and I want to do everything in my power to make sure that they don't go through the things that I went through. It doesn't matter what gender you are. It doesn't matter what you look like. It just matters, are you a good person? I want someone to know it's okay to be transgender. It's okay to discover that you're not transgender if you think you are. It's okay to be gender fluid. It's okay to be gender neutral. It's okay to be gender non-conforming. It's okay to be male. It's okay to be female. It's okay to be gay, straight, lesbian. It's okay. Just please be a good person. Be kind. Hi folks, welcome back to part 2 of my episode with Katie and Ethan, where we've been discussing what it's like for siblings when transgender and non-binary people come out to them and what that relationship is like and if it changes or not. So when Katie came out, when he came out, as this process has been evolving, like you've working with unique people, and every person's unique, and I think that's what these stories are getting to. I hope as I do this show is that my story is my story, your story is your story, your story is your story. So when she came out, was it that, how has that impacted you for you? I mean, not as far as your relationship with Katie, but I like to think of it as I'm a change agent in the world. That's how I like to look at it. I want people, when they meet me, to question gender or question what it means to be male or female. What does it mean to have this role? What does it mean to have that role? Did anything like that, or is any evolution like that happening with you as this process is going on?
Definitely. Well, when Katie came out as gay in high school and was the last one to find out, and that and that whole thing, there was and as long as Katie was a gay girl, was a lesbian, it was something that was still like socially quantifiable. It was very, like mainstream. Like by then, there were plenty of sitcoms. There's a lot that people were introduced to and generally comfortable with, or at least understanding of what that meant. And it was sort of a for me, in some ways, it would be a kind of almost like a badge of honor, or in a means of saying that, like, no, it's when people joke about, like, oh, I've got a black friend, that to qualify their statements or whatever. Like, I have a lesbian sister. I'm a very understanding person. You don't know my background. Like, it's actually a little more diverse than you probably would be safe to assume.
Right.
But getting older, and that's less of a, is like more intelligent and less like, idiotic about how we would treat that information or relationship. But when Katie came out again with the transgender, was something that was, even though Katie did a great job of planting all the seeds and sort of preparing us that there's more to this story, you guys. This isn't this is a the third book is going to be a 2-part movie that that we're gonna like. That when Katie came out with that, it was something else for me to understand in the world of something that wasn't quite as, again, out there, because this was now 5 years ago that Katie made that announcement, and not in the case of her coming out as a lesbian, was like individual sit down one-on-one, and with the when she came out with the transgender, then it was like all at once, to kind of an announcement to everybody in social media, and wasn't like like, all right, everyone, make sure you get a good night's sleep because there's going to be something to digest tomorrow kind of situation. It was more, here you go, and like I got it in real time with everybody else, and it was something that it helped me just appreciate that. Then again, there's still a whole lot more to all of the world of sexual identity and sexuality and gender identification that that I still hadn't appreciated, because like not up until that exact moment, but up until, for the most part, that general time frame, it was still just it was still a very quantifiable, understandable, scenario or situation that like made sense in a lot of in the ways that a lot of the society was still pushing what's supposed to make sense, and with that slightly wider berth of acceptance for people who are identifying as gay. So it kind of put it back to square one with an opportunity to just learn that much more and to consider my own behavior and interactions with other people, just that much deeper and that much more intelligently to appreciate that, like I still don't know that much, like to not know that much about my own sibling.
Right. Well, I mean, everybody's pursuing authenticity, I hope.
Yeah.
That's my goal, or that I think everybody should be. So transition is a permanent thing in my life. I mean, I'm not going to say I'm going to transition genders again, nothing like that, but I'm going to grow and I'm going to become a much more rounded person, I hope, as I experience life and I learn more things like being transgender, being trans feminine. I'm very binary. When I was raised, boys had these roles, girls had these roles, and I bought into those binary roles. So I knew I wasn't a boy, and I knew girls did these things, so I'm a girl, and I still didn't see that there was any possibility that there was something to go from here to here, or that there was even something on the other side and above it and below it and behind it and in front of it. Because what is there, 6 billion people on the planet now?
6 or 7, yeah, right.
That's how many genders there are.
7 today.
I really believe that's how many genders there are.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because if I were to go to each person and say, what does it mean to be you with your gender? I would get, I imagine, 6 billion different answers, or 7 billion, 8 billion, now however many it's growing at.
Yeah, right.
And exactly. So for me to have, I'm learning. Just like everybody else, I'm learning this because I was so wrapped up in learning what it meant to be me. I have a grasp of what it means to be me now. And that's given me the opportunity to now go learn what it means to be somebody else. I mean, the fact that you're willing to come on here and say, I'm not even binary at all, is coming to hearing it as a binary person that's evolving. I'm like, I get it. How in the heck did you not fall into the trap of the binary? You know what I mean? How did you manage to, and it has nothing to do with falling into a trap of the binary, it's just you being you. But I still struggle with that thought process, and that's one of my evolutions that I'm going through is how in the heck can you escape the binary when it's not, in fact, you're not escaping it at all. That has nothing to do with it. Do people tell you that you're wrong about yourself? When you say, this is how I self-identify, do they say, that doesn't even exist, there's no way? Have you come across that at all yet? And I hope you never do.
I haven't had a lot of that. Aside from people passing out Bibles on the street and telling me I'm going to hell, which I have had, I don't surround myself a lot with people who are stuck so far in kind of the past or their sort of beliefs that they don't understand that queer exists and gay exists and trans exist. And that's just, luck of the draw for my family and where I was born and where I grew up, and then sort of self-selection from there. Right. But more than anything, what I get is people who are curious and who do not understand. And I live out in the Bay Area now, which is queer Mecca, right? Yes. So most of the people that I hang out with have more than one trans friend, which is not the case in a lot of places. It is kind of why I went out there. We've gotten to a point now with Laverne Cox and Janet Mock and more visibility. People are getting binary trans folks like, okay, you were put in the wrong body, right? The wrong body narrative. And I'm still sort of a big question mark for people. So were you born, what are you again? I get a lot of that. and I get a lot of people, like I said, telling me essentially that my identity and my pronouns are too confusing for them to engage with in some kind of way, whether they're telling me that directly or whether they're telling me that by not doing it. I get a lot of that. I get a lot of people asking me a lot of questions about my identity and how I came to, know this stuff about myself and what even is gender. And then they say, thank you so much for teaching me all these things. And then they use female pronouns forever. And, that's hard, I think. And it's one of the things that, I get on my dad about. I think I'm lucky, even in my dad and my mom. I push them a lot, and I call them on things, and I educate on every angle that I can catch, because I have high standards for them, because I know that they can do it. But my dad will say things like, "It's just hard to remember," and I'll be like, "Yep, still not as hard as being me. Like, try harder, Dad. Get it. Come on, you got this."
Yeah.
Right.
My
And you're
coworkers
talking.
have no idea how many siblings I have. I always, if I'm refer to Katie, I refer to Katie, and they're like, "Oh, your sister up in San Francisco." I'm like, "My brother's in San Francisco." They're like, "Wait, what?" I'm like, we have been over this. So I make the conscious effort as often as possible, but it's to some degree, it's almost like are you paying attention?
And you said you consider yourself a change agent.
Yes.
And I identify as male and female. I feel like educator is maybe a third significant component of my gender identity. And I love knowing that there are people like Ethan and people like my dad and other folks in my life who are very fluent in sort of this middle ground area, out there educating others who are like, who are you talking about still now? Did we switch siblings? What are you talking about?
And then it goes into the, all right, I'm going to do my best. Non-binary, you with me?
Yeah.
I'm still here. You're getting
Nope.
glossy eyes.
Okay.
no glossy eyes.
Roll it back.
We're gonna go farther back. Yeah.
So, I mean, in a way, what you're doing with your family and being this change agent, you're wanting to take, you're in the Bay Area.
Mm-hmm.
I moved to Massachusetts for safety.
Yeah.
You moved to the Bay Area to be around people, a larger number. For me, I moved to Massachusetts for that same reason. As I'm here, I'm beginning to realize that the people in Boston and Northampton in there, they don't need me to help them to vote for my rights and to understand me. Mm-hmm. I need to go to Winchendon. I need to go to Athol. I need to go to the small town where they know nothing of gender, other than you're supposed to be a boy or a girl, and that's what their knowledge of it is. And I feel like that's where somehow or another we've got to get this information to. And it's scary, because I also know that that's where the danger lies, and that's why I left Tennessee, because I was stealth there out of fear and all these other reasons. I would love to somehow or another, with your education program that you're creating, if we could go to let me be your pilot, test pilot or whatever for one of your things that you're creating, and let me take it to a school with you all, and let's see if it works in a one-room schoolhouse K through 12, and let's change it from there. I mean, I'm ready to go. I'm ready. I don't want another kid to go through what I had to go through growing up.
Yeah.
And to see you, I'm still hoping for an arm wrestling match. Offset though, but not offset.
I think I could win the physical one, possibly. If it was a mental arm wrestling match or academic arm wrestling match, I'm toast.
We just play boggle.
I'm absolutely toast. Yeah.
But it's it's things like that I get to visualize you two enjoying each other's company as siblings, and then not getting along as siblings, but it has nothing that's going to tear you apart permanently. Because of my upbringing with my siblings having not supported me and still don't support me and tentatively reach out like they do and then pull back, it has cost me trust issues. It's cost me abandonment issues. It's cost me things like if a friend does something even unconsciously that hurts me, that brings back all of these feelings of my family leaving me. and me having no family. And I expect, unfortunately, because of what my family has done to me, I don't hope it happens, but I can understand how everybody would leave me because my family left me. And so whenever I get into friction with people, that creeps in all the time. And I'm truly hoping, Katie, that because you have this wonderful sibling and you have this wonderful relationship with your family, that thought never creeps into your mind with other people, except unless you want them to not be a part of your life anymore. You know what I mean? And that's the blessing that I'm getting from this, from you all, is there are families out there that are going to fight for their siblings. They might fight with their siblings too, but they're going to really push to protect their siblings the best way they know how. And my guess is that the same holds true both ways. And it makes me smile.
I think it's important that you point out privilege, you know, and Ethan mentioned being straight white cis boy from an educated, well-off enough family, you know, and we grew up in the same house, and you know, I'm queer and trans and disabled, and there's significant difference in our experiences, but even still, I walk through the world and people read me as a straight white cis boy. And there are, you know, so many other intersections of privilege that I do have, one of which is a highly supportive family and growing up in a liberal area. And I know, you know, had I grown up in a different place, had I been a person of color, had we been poor, uneducated, any number of things, my life would have been entirely different. And I think knowing that I have the supports that I have, and I have the privileges that I have, and even honestly just knowing that when I walk in a room, people see me and read white male, and what that means is they take me seriously in a way that, you know, you're not taken seriously if you're feminine. You know, so many aspects of privilege. I know that I have a voice. I know that I can talk to other people in ways that can make change. And I think the best thing that we as a community can do is find the ways that we each can affect change, and also find the ways that we know we need to do things to make ourselves safe. So you moved to you know, Massachusetts from Tennessee to make yourself safe. I moved from liberal Massachusetts. Well, at the time I was living actually in a small town in New Hampshire where my queer community was 2 couples and my ex. It was just getting a little tight.
It's pretty tight cup.
And you know, I moved to the Bay Area because I felt like in that community I could have come out as male and been supported. I had one trans friend that lived a few towns over, but I wanted to be around more trans people. But I also wanted to be in a more diverse community. I wanted also to be challenged. And you know, I grew up in a very white town. I grew up in a very privileged town, class-wise, education-wise. And, you know, I think the best thing that we can each do is take care of ourselves when that is necessary, and go out and affect change where we can. And not try to affect change where actually it's going to hurt you more than it's going to help that person. You know, and I think that's how a lot of folks can think about their own families. If it's going to hurt you more than it's going to change them, then you need to go out and find yourself a space that is going to be healing and supportive for you first. You know, if you have that love and you have that support, then you reach in there and you make the change. I know I've beat myself up over times when I was like, I should have done something to educate that person, and then I look back and I'm like, no, I was scared. I was scared of that person, you know, feared for my safety, and I took care of myself instead. That's okay.
It is okay.
And finding that balance of taking care of yourself and making change where you can, I think is huge. You know, and it looks different for everybody.
It does. It does. That picked on to one thing that I wanted to add, and then I can tell you've got this brilliant thought about to explode.
Yeah, unlikely.
Just singing a song.
For me, fear was one of the things. I didn't transition until I turned 40 years old, and that was years ago. And the reason that I didn't transition until I was 40 was fear. And I tried to transition in the mid-90s, and I felt instantly what it was like to lose white male privilege. And I was terrified. This is going to sound very selfish and but I felt like it was going to be easier to beat myself up mentally and emotionally every single day than to lose white male privilege. That's how, and people don't even know how powerful it is. And all it took was 7 months of me on Premarin and going out into the world presenting as a female to learn what it was like that I was giving up. And I wonder if there's other trans people without even knowing it, that, especially trans feminine, that transition later out of fear of losing white male privilege and they don't even realize it.
I'm sure there are. And, you know, on the flip side, I've seen transmasculine folks sort of ascend up into their privilege and take it and run, you know, and I think there was, you know, a whole thing between Laverne Cox and forget which reporter, online personality, someone said, you know, trans women have male privilege or had male privilege before they transition, and Laverne Cox countered that and said, you know, I was a feminine boy, I was bullied, and I think it's more nuanced than that. You know, I think I had male privilege when I was a young girl, just by presenting masculine in some ways. I also was bullied for presenting masculine. I've seen it on both sides, I guess. You know,
it's fascinating. I mean, we are fortunate in the sense that we get to see both sides of the looking glass.
Yeah. Yeah, I think most of the time trans folks are a little more aware of how it plays out because they get to see both sides, depending on how well you pass before and after, right? Like, I never really passed as a girl when I was younger. So I think a lot of my learning about male privilege has been in the ways that cis men do, which is when my more feminine friends tell me a thing and I'm like, that was never a thing for me. I think I had a sort of aha moment about male privilege in college. I was leaving we had a group meeting on campus, and I was headed back to my dorm and said, good night, I'm heading home, and my friends knew where I lived and knew the path to get there was sort of through this wooded path. And they were like, you're going by yourself in the dark? I was like, yeah, I do that every day. And, you know, 3 feminine presenting women were like, we would never do that alone in the dark. Never, ever would I walk that path alone in the dark. And I had to, like, realize, that's because I look like a dude, that I've never even considered that might be dangerous. And that's called male privilege, even though at that time I was identifying as female, and as far as I knew, like, I was female, so how can I have male privilege? That doesn't make any sense, you know?
It's because of your gender expression and the way the world chose to see you.
Yeah.
Do you, Ethan, with all of this that we've talked about on the transgender, non-binary spectrum, on the cisgender side of all of this as a sibling, please tell me this has, I mean, maybe it makes you think of gender, but this has not become contagious and all of a sudden now you're trans, right? Because there are people that think that just by, you know, that you can influence people that much by brainwashing them.
Well, there's no question that we are beyond siblings in terms of just our looks, but then you can get that somewhere deep inside of us are very similar motors, drivers. We probably the most incredible story or instance of it presenting itself was when I moved to California well before Katie did, and drove across the country. It was a 5-speed standard car, so it made a huge difference to have somebody helping. Our parents offered to pay for a flight back, and it was also as we'd both finished with school and had gone to different schools, hadn't spent a whole lot of time, probably hadn't spent 5 consecutive days with each other since I'd left high school and gone to college, and And I think by the time Katie was in college too, that we just hadn't spent this time together, and it was a good opportunity to hang out and drive across the country. And because driving to Los Angeles literally means that Las Vegas is on the way, we stopped in Las Vegas, and with absolutely no appreciation whatsoever for how one or the other of us would dance, if either of us even enjoyed dancing. We ended up at at like one of these club bars there, and almost simultaneously like exclaiming to each other, "How do you have the exact same dance moves as me?"
Same moves.
Exact same.
100%.
That we
Not Dad's moves.
Not our
he
dad's
tries
moves.
to say that
Well,
we dance like him.
He's
oh,
a
he's
dancer.
off stage.
Yeah, he's off
laughing
stage. I can hear the laughter. But he, but no, I mean, but we're certainly dancers, and we have
We
him
got
to thank
Dad's
for that.
heart.
Somehow we got the exact same moves without ever once being in the same room dancing together. So there's no question that somewhere deep down, that hardwired, we are absolutely related to each other, and that we share things that we didn't even realize that we shared. And I'm sure that there's plenty of other things that we could potentially discover down the road in the same vein. But Katie's journey and Katie's coming out as trans, it's given me the opportunity to think. It's given me the opportunity to be more flexible with how steadfast, if I was on the spot to say, "You're absolutely 100% straight," I'd say no, I'm straight for sure, but there's no reason that I have to fit every single one of the pigeonholes that being a straight cisgendered male would be. I'm happy to put on a flamboyant shirt and give the laundromat attendee a hard time for telling me that I might want to be careful wearing it around Boston because he's an idiot and I look good in the thing. So it's not a question of that there's that I feel like for me the entire experience has been awakening in my ability, in just my appreciation for the privilege that I never realized that I was almost certainly being afforded in so many different scenarios, as we just talked about. I think that the most important takeaway for me has been my ability now to question like not just binary or black and white in terms of just polar opposites, that everything is so much grayer in the way that everyone can appreciate who they are, what they like, why it's okay that who you are or what you like doesn't fit directly into the square peg, square hole scenario. Yep. That it's worth it now. I take the time to question, was it the circumstances? Was it my presentation of the facts, or was it the fact that I was a prototypical male privileged person that got me out of that speeding ticket? Why did I really get out of that? And
it's the cool beard. That's what it was.
I stopped giving myself as much credit as I used to just want to take, and assume that it was thanks to entirely my personality or the fact that I could occasionally be articulate. That there was also a very, very likely possibility that I've gotten away with stuff that I know for a fact, even knew at the time, that I didn't deserve to get away with, but I did. And I question that now, and I pay more attention to the very likely possibilities that there's more to it than I was not willing to, but just that I had the understanding of need to consider. And that's what I think that for siblings of gay, transgender, of anybody, for anyone that's got a sibling, if you're a sibling and you've got another sibling, no matter what the deal is, and no matter who you are, even if you don't, that there's so much more for you to appreciate from other people. And I truly love people, but there's just so much more to appreciate for who they are and how they see themselves as who they are than I feel like I ever really had the opportunity or just wherewithal to dig into or appreciate or even look for. That's been probably the best, for me personally in my life, and my ability to just be that much better, closer friends with anybody experience that's come out of this. It's just another instance of me being outrageously lucky, but it's still unique, and it's given me a lot more insight into things that would have never crossed my plate for all of those reasons that we just said. I never would have thought about it if I wasn't lucky enough to be close enough to Katie to get that lens, and to witness it firsthand, front row seat, that the journey that Katie had, and how it doesn't necessarily apply to everybody, but how it potentially could. And that's enough to start to help
Yep.
me appreciate that it's worth paying attention to in all instances and all interactions.
It'll help you to grow.
It has.
Absolutely, it'll
1,000%.
help you to grow, to start trying to step outside of your own skin and see things from other perspectives. Can't help. You have to grow from that. Okay, I want to finish the show with one question, and it's a school-related question. I work at a school system, and one of the teachers, great teacher, every day will put up outside of their door, sit next to your 12 o'clock buddy today. Sit next to your 3 o'clock buddy. And I walked by the other day and it said, sit next to somebody of the opposite gender. And it stopped me right in my tracks, because I'm starting to learn that, wait, everybody's gender is opposite, because none of them are the same. And I wondered what would happen if people had actually challenged that teacher in the classroom. Do you think that a 7th grade kid would have had would you have had the courage to have sit with what you considered to be the gender that wasn't yours, whatever it was? Me, I would have not had the courage, and I would have went, and even in 7th grade, because by then I knew that everybody was telling me I was a boy and that was the easiest way to get through life. I would have begrudgingly either slowly went and sat with a girl, or I would have tried to have gotten out of it and gone to the bathroom. What would you have done if you walked into that class that day?
7th grade me
Yeah, 7th grade
would
you.
have probably sat next to a boy, because, yeah, I didn't know that I had any choice in the matter.
Exactly.
Or any other possibilities. Today me would probably say, you know, what is opposite of this? I don't know, because it's not a, you know, two-way street. It's a whole playground. I think there are kids out there now who will challenge that.
There are now. I've seen it happen.
You know, it depends on the teacher, and it depends on the kids, and it depends on where you are and who you got in the room. A beautiful family that are very dear to me have 2 kiddos, and one of them, I believe, is 9. I'm probably wrong, because they always get older. But you know, they were in class, and teacher said, all right, you're gonna draw a portrait of someone. You know, it's gonna be a boy or a girl. And he raised his hand. He said, it could be a non-binary person too. And you know, that teacher in that moment could have done any number of things. And that teacher said, you know what, you're right. You're gonna get a gold star for your team for
there
today.
You go.
You
And
know,
that will be a lesson learned for others. I mean, that's perfect.
yeah.
And do you think that what grade was that kid in now?
You know, I'm pretty sure, I'm probably wrong,
So-
but somewhere around 3rd or 4th.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, and that's the thing, they understand. My 7th grade students that know that I'm transgender, the first words out of their mouth a lot of times are when they see me is, when are you going to do your next show? When do you have a disc golf tournament? Can I be on your show? Can you help me with my math? And then I'll have a couple of kids that'll say, hey, I just found out through my mother that you're transgender because I had this article come out on NPR, and now I have trans kids at the high school that are emailing me that are wanting to meet me to talk to me. Through all of this discussion of what you're talking about doing, educating the teachers and educating everyone, because we all still have to learn. If you get tired of learning, something's wrong.
Yeah.
Something's wrong.
And you know, it's much harder to educate the teachers than the kids.
Yes, it is.
Kids get it so much faster. I worked in an after-school program for kindergartners for about 5 months, and I never told them my gender. They'd ask me every couple weeks. You know, one of them would come up to me and say, "Are you a boy or a girl?" And I'd just say, "What do you think?" And I had them in a good little conversation. You know, one day, where one of them was like, "I think you're a girl because you have boobs," and I was like, "Well, that's a good point." And the next one said, "Well, I think you're a boy because you have a beard," and I was like, "Oh, that's a good point too." Talk amongst yourselves. And you know, kids say to me all the time, no, he's a girl. I love it.
I mean, that's what you're.
And,
I mean, that's
you know,
you're with.
They can take it and run with it. It's the adults who dig their heels in and, you know, believe this is what I learned and I'm right. And I honestly think kids are the future. You know, they're gonna understand this stuff way faster. They're gonna pick it up and run. All we got to do is support them.
Right, and that's what I think about whenever a parent will come to me, my kid's trans, I don't know what to do. I'm like, they're the engineer of the train.
Yeah.
You support the
Love 'em.
engineer.
Yeah,
Love
ask questions.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Okay, well, folks, I think we're going to wrap the show up now. I really appreciate you coming, Ethan. Katie, thank you so much for coming and sharing the unique experience of siblings that can love one another.
Absolutely, it's a pleasure.
Because it truly inspires me, and there will be people that will get something from it. Thank you, everybody out there in TV land on Kelly's Quest and on YouTube and all that. I love saying that kind of stuff, TV land. I'm not on TV land yet, so don't look for me there, but I might be. But I really appreciate you all coming, and thank you, everybody out there, and we'll see you soon.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you.
Thank you.